By the way, happy holidays, everyone. These days, you don't need an excuse to have a little get-together at your place. You want to watch the big game or a New Year's party? Whatever. Stock your party with drinks from Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. You can schedule drinks to be delivered up to 2 weeks in advance or in as little as 60 minutes. Plus, Drizzly helps you save dough by comparing prices on a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits from local stores. So grab that to-do list of yours and cross out, go to the liquor store. Download the Drizzly app today or go to drizzly.com. Again, DRIZLY.com. No more going on beer runs or stressing out about finding a particular bottle of wine. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com, the go-to app for alcohol delivery. Must be 21, not available in all locations.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Okay, so let me tell you a quick story. I have been trying to get an interview with Paul Rodgers for this podcast for a few months now, okay? Kind of back and forth with his management. I finally got it hooked up for mid-September. The night before the interview, my dog, who was old, unexpectedly died right in front of me. Very traumatic. And the next day, I had the interview with Paul Rodgers. I kind of spaced it. I was up all night. I emailed his management to explain, and they were understanding. They said, we'll reschedule. The next week, I happened to be in San Diego for a wedding. The week after that, we booked it, and it got canceled somehow. And then today, I had the interview scheduled for 10 a.m. Central Time, which I thought would be 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I just got a new puppy who had diarrhea all night long. He ended up waking me up at 3:50 this morning, and then I slept with him on the couch until about 7:30. Took him out again, produced a solid deuce. So I was like, great. Let me just go back to bed for like a half an hour, wake up at 8 o'clock and start my day. My pup then starts waking me up at about 10:45 a.m. I quickly get up, freak out, put my clothes on, and I see I missed a call from a strange phone number. Don't really give it any thought. I run to the studio, and as I'm waiting for Paul Rodgers to call, I notice that same phone number has called the studio. I then check my voicemail on my cell phone. It's Paul Rodgers. He thought the interview was 10 a.m. Eastern Time, not Central Time. So now I'm freaking out. Thank God he left a message with a phone number. I called back. It went straight to voicemail, and I was friggin' devastated. I mean, let me tell you, in my opinion, the 3 greatest voices in rock and roll, in no particular order: Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, Freddie Mercury from Queen, Paul Rodgers from Bad Company. I'm frantic. I'm emailing his management. And for some reason, I said, you know what? Let me try calling this number back again from my cell phone. I called, and guess what? Paul picks up on the other end. I explained the whole story to him, and him and his wife couldn't have been nicer. So we made it happen. Without further ado, my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber, the legendary Paul Rodgers from Bad Company.
I mean, I know what it's like because we lost a dog about 4 years ago now called Saxon. He's a big Rottweiler, and we loved him to bits. It was a rescue, and he a Doberman. It was a Doberman, sorry, and you know, he was a rescue, and at the SPCA they just gave him to us. They said, "Oh, nobody wants him. Take him." We're like, okay, he'll probably just live a couple of years, but he lived for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
And he was a person, really.
Right.
In so many ways, you know.
Did you have a tough time, like, when that dog passed away? Were you and your wife having a tough time getting over it?
Yeah, we did. But to be honest, though, we were expecting it for a long time because he was incontinent bless him, for a long, long time, and I think it was a blessing all around in the end.
Right. Oh man, it was so hard for us. Our dog was wetting himself too in bed, and we had diapers on him, but he still showed like he liked being around us, and still showed that he ate, and we had a hard time. We had a hard time, man. We got another dog not too long ago, and it's not the same, but it's a little pup. He's getting into a lot of trouble. It's been very it's been a challenge, to say the least, right?
Well, you'll go through that. I'm sure he'll find another place in your heart.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Well, again, thanks so much for doing this. I've been wanting to talk to you for such a long time, and I'm just so glad to hear how everything has gotten back to normal for you, because I read the stories while I was away. I'm reading these stories about Paul Rodgers having strokes, and I'm going, wait a second, what's going on with that? Because I have been in contact with your management for a long time, and they're giving me new songs, and I go, this guy sounds as good as he's always sounded. So there's no way you could have gone through a stroke. Tell me about what happened.
I actually feel better than I've ever felt ever. It's funny. It's quite amazing, because I've had a long rest. I had lots of hyperbarics, which is oxygen under pressure, and that really helped. And really, I found that although I was like I couldn't talk for a bit, I had to learn to brush my teeth and how to walk again and all this kind of stuff. I mean, everything. But it was all, the memory was coded inside my brain. It's very interesting that the brain can do that. And if you can wake that back up, it all comes rushing back. It's quite fantastic.
That's incredible. And I know quite a bit about hyperbarics, because a good friend of mine, who we'll call Dr. Larry, he's a doctor and specializes in hyperbarics, and I could never really understand what it was. You're like in a tube, you're in a chamber, it pumps oxygen in, and that's supposed to do what for your body?
Well, you just sit there and you just breathe. You don't do anything. You can actually watch a movie and you just breathe as deeply as you want. I mean, the deeper you breathe, the more more good effect it has on you. And what that does, the oxygen goes into your lungs, and from your lungs it bubbles out into your bloodstream, and then that runs around your brain, runs around your whole body via your heart, and it wakes your brain up. Amazing.
It is amazing. I mean, I know another guy, a radio guy, who's had a stroke back in February, and it's affected his speech. And if you can imagine being on the radio, that's affected his livelihood. So he's having a hard time right now. His name's Mark Haney. He's a really good friend of mine. So
he should definitely try. It doesn't matter how long you've waited. Just go in, try it, because it's all there inside. And most of the time, I met a guy called Levi, the Four Tops singer.
Sure, absolutely.
He had a stroke too, and he was in a wheelchair actually. And the Four Tops had invited me for their 40th anniversary, or was it the 50th? Something like that. But anyway, at the after party, I was standing next to him, and he's in a wheelchair, and he's not got a voice. He wouldn't speak, And so I said to myself, well, what do I do? What do I say? And I just sang to him. I sang "The Long and Winding Road" like that.
Wow!
And he looked at me like, "Yeah, keep going." And it was. I said, "You did a version of that, didn't you, Levi?" And he said, he sort of nodded, But so you could tell that inside. And I knew nothing about hyperbarics at that point, so I couldn't really, say anything to recommend it. But when I think back, I think, wow, he was locked inside and trying to get out, and wow.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable how the brain, it's an amazing thing. And when you go through something like that and you lose the ability to do all of these things that you've been doing for years and years and years, you can't do them anymore. And then finally, they all come back. I think that's the most amazing part.
Well, it was incredible, actually, to be in the studio, because I got the guitar, I was playing acoustic guitar, and I got enough tracks together I had a load of tracks. We went in the studio, and my core band was bassist Todd Running from Bad Company, and my solo band. I had Rick Feddick on drums, and guitarist engineer Ray Roper from a Canadian band actually called Stonebolt. And when I got on mic and we were doing Coming Home, the first track on the album, it felt so good because I wasn't really sure how I'd be in the studio, and I wasn't really trying to make an album. I was just trying to, see what we can do. And it was just fantastic to be rocking out again. So, yeah.
So what do you think, Paul? Is there a tour coming up? I don't want to push you too hard, but do you think you're going to try?
Nice of you to ask, Jeff, but I have no plans to tour at this point. But I may do, somebody suggested a residency or some nature like that, or something that doesn't involve touring. Or one-offs.
Okay.
That sort of thing, yeah.
Okay, well that would be great. I would love to find. I've never seen. Don't get mad at me. I've never seen Bad Company, and it's definitely on my bucket list. So if there is, do you talk to the guys anymore? Do you think that would be something in the future, a residency like you mentioned?
Well, my health has to come first right now. And
yes.
But I'll continue to make music for the fans. But yeah, I still talk to the Bad Company boys. I had a vegetarian restaurant in New York just the other day with Simon.
Great.
This good lady. And we're still talking.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. So, Paul, if you wouldn't mind, take me back, and this is, we're talking about your memory all coming back all the way, so this could be a challenge. But take me back all the way before Bad Company. Where did you grow up, and how was your childhood?
Well, I grew up and was born in a town called Middlesbrough, which is in the northeast of England, and it is a very much industrial town. It's a steel town, and shipbuilding and chemicals and all that sort of thing. And I heard a lot of music coming from the States, like Howlin' Wolf. Howlin' Wolf is on Sun Records as well, which is an amazing thing that I'm on Sun Records now.
Right.
And I loved the music, and the music really, I followed the music from my hometown. It took me to London, then it took me to America, then it took me to Japan, then it took me all around the world. And so that's what I've done pretty much all my life.
How about musical influences? Is there anyone that comes to mind that you can tell me this guy really meant a lot to me, or this band?
Otis Redding springs readily to mind. I love Otis Redding. I loved the Otis Blue album. And, just the heartfelt way he used to sing. I used to almost preach the way he sang. It was just beautiful.
And your parents, what kind of business were they in? Were they in musical people also, or were they into just regular jobs?
Well, my grandfather worked on the railways, working on the railway for $1 a day, like that. And he played banjo, but that's about the only musical influence I had. My father worked in the steelworks, and he bought me a guitar when I was I think I was 12. And for no real reason, he just turned up with his guitar and handed it to me. I was like, what? And so that actually got me in the band. At school, there was a band going on, and you only had to own a guitar to be part of that band. So that got me in the band. Nobody could play at all, so we just got together in the guitarist's kitchen, one of the guitar players, and made a row, basically, and that basically started to turn into music eventually.
So were you thinking about anything else other than music when you were, say, in high school and then maybe moving to college? Did you go to college?
We have a different school system in the UK. We went to junior school and then senior school, basically.
Okay.
So I went to senior school, and I had my first experience at R&B, and my friend Colin Bradley taught me the 12-bar blues, which I found very fascinating because 12-bar blues, there's 1 million songs written on it, and there's still room for another 1 million to be written. And now where would you get a song structure that remains the same and be able to put different lyrics on it to that many songs? It's quite amazing. That's why I love the blues.
Did you think music the whole time, Paul, or did you have a backup plan in the UK? Did you have a job lined up if music didn't work out? Were you even thinking about that, or no?
No, my thing was music from the way back get-go, and I did get a job, but I actually interviewed in the steelworks for a job there as a fitter or something. But I said to them, I really don't want to do this. So they said, okay, go find somewhere else to work. So I got a job in town that made me available for shows I could do with the band. And it was in a paint and wallpaper store. But I did that for a couple of years, and we went down to London then, and then turned professional and promptly starved.
Wow. Was that your first job, Paul, the paint and wallpaper store?
Yeah, John Lyne's wallpaper and all that sort of store, yeah.
Oh, man. Well, it looks like things worked out better for you, didn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd rather do music, I'll be quite honest.
I'd hate to see a world without you doing music, I could tell you that much.
Oh, well, thanks.
Tell me, is this rumor true? And you probably have confirmed this over the years, or maybe it's just written down and it's make-believe, but I heard when Jim Morrison passed away, the Doors tried to contact you, but you were living off the grid somewhere, no cell phones at the time, but they wanted you to be their new lead singer. Is there any truth to that?
Well, with the Doors, actually, I didn't know this at the time, but later on, the Doors, I played a show with the Doors without Jim Morrison, right?
Yeah.
And Robbie Krieger came up to me, the guitarist, and he said, when Jim died, all the rest of the band got on an airplane. We flew to London. I said, yeah, really? He said, yeah, and we were looking for you.
Wow.
I said, what? They said, yeah, we wanted you to join the band. And there's a picture of me with my jaw hitting the floor. And I was amazed at that. But, it didn't happen because I didn't know about it.
Well, yeah, back then, think about it. Now people get in touch with everybody, social media, news breaks. It happens instantly. And back then, you had to go on foot and try to find a guy. And if you were living off the grid somewhere, you weren't going to have too much luck.
Well, pretty much, I was buried in the country. They couldn't really find me at all. I was getting what was I getting together? I think Bad Company was forming at that point.
Do you ever think, like, what if? I mean, you have to, right?
Well, I do, but I nothing, who knows, right?
Right. Absolutely. Hey, it worked out. It definitely worked out for the best. Yeah. That's for sure. So before that, Paul, talk about Free. That was, well, can you tell me about your big break? Like, what was the big break that really got you attention and the band Free attention?
The big break that got Free attention. Well,
or Paul Rodgers, for that matter.
Yeah. Well, meeting and forming Free was very much. Free was where I was at, as it were, where I found my voice. But before then, I was just doing shows with. There's a way back history. I mean, there was a band called Brown Sugar before that. Then there was the Wildflowers before that. Then there was the Premiers where we were at school and all these kind of bands. But Free was my first successful band, and they were wonderful people. I mean, Andy Fraser on bass, Simon Kirk on drums, and my favorite guitarist of all time, Paul Kossoff, on guitar. Now, Paul Kossoff and I formed Free, and we had the initial idea because I was playing in a blues band in a pub in Finsbury Park in London, and he came along, Paul Kossoff came along, and said, can I get up on stage and jam? I said, yeah, sure, man, let's go. And so he got up on stage and we played some blues. We played Stormy Monday Blues. We played 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting here waiting. And we played, just a bunch of blues like that. And people came up afterwards and said, time stood still when you were playing those songs. And I looked at Carson and I said, wow. The only other person that they'd said about that was Eric Clapton at the Marquee. And I said, wow, man, we've got something. We must form a band. And that's where Free was started, right there. And
can you tell me when the single All Right Now came out and it shot up the charts, internationally, was that pretty much the thing that kicked the door wide open for you and Free?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm playing at the Isle of Wight Festival, too.
What was it, the Isle of Wight Festival?
Isle of Wight, yeah. It was like Britain's answer to Woodstock.
Okay. Oh, very, very cool. Well, I heard another rumor, Paul, that as of a while ago, you didn't perform the song All Right Now live in your sets anymore. Was that true?
Yeah, I did drop it because I thought people had had enough of it by that time. And so I was doing a tribute to Muddy Waters, and I was doing a blues tour, and I had Jason Bonham, John Bonham's, the drummer from Led Zeppelin, his son.
Yes.
He was on drums, and he was a big Free fan. And he was forever going, let's do Fire and Water, let's do Wishing Well, let's do, The Steeler. And one night we were at this club, I can't remember where it was now, and it was a packed house, and everybody was rocking out, we were playing blues. And all of a sudden, this voice comes up from the drums, let's do All Right Now. And he's and I said to him again, no, this is a blues tour, we're not doing All Right Now. But then the front row of the audience picked up on that. And all of a sudden, there's only me saying, let's not do it. So the whole place was in an uproar, and we did it, and it was amazing. So it stayed in the set since then.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I would say that you got, that was peer pressure at its finest right there, Paul. Paul, again, so happy to hear from you. So happy to hear that you're doing well. Congratulations on Midnight Rose. That's the new album from Paul Rodgers. It just came out in September. I urge everybody to check it out because he sounds as good as he's ever sounded, and I know that you'll agree. And hopefully, Paul, one of these days, when you're feeling up to it, we'll get you to perform some of these songs.
Okay, Jeff. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much again. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to put Cynthia back on.
Well, here's a special little treat. Paul Rodgers' wife, Cynthia, a Canadian fitness and exercise guru. She actually won the title of Miss Canada back in 1984 and went on to compete in the Miss Universe pageant that year. And she co-wrote the title track off Paul's new album, Midnight Rose.
Hi, Jeff. I was sorry to hear about your dog.
Cynthia, thank you so much. It was such a it was so traumatic because we knew he was getting older.
Right.
But I was telling Paul, I used to always joke with my wife saying, the dog's on his last leg of the tour, but we just didn't expect it to happen that night, and it was very traumatic. So. And 15 years with a dog, and just like Paul was telling me about your dog, that wasn't supposed to live for, a couple of years, and lived for 6 years.
I know, it was 7 actually.
7, wow.
Yeah, he was 14, a full-size Doberman. He was about 95 pounds.
Wow.
And the SPCA just said, he's really sweet, but, he's not going to live long. And they said, please just take him, he's been here too long. And we did, and he was the sweetest dog. He was really, really kind and smart.
Oh,
very
man.
Intelligent. And, the John Lyons story, too. From John Lyons, it backed onto, there was an alleyway, and behind John Lyons was the Purple Onion, which was a club. And Paul would see the bands coming and going and parking their vehicles and sleeping in the vehicles overnight and then setting up for the shows. So he watched all of that. So he had a bird's eye view of this club. And then the bouncer at the club and the owner, they allowed Paul to come in because he was 13, 14, 15, young. But they thought, well, he's a young budding musician, just let him come in and listen to the band.
Wow. I was telling Paul I have a good friend that's in the radio business that had a stroke in February, but I also have a doctor friend who specializes in hyperbarics. So I'm going to try to set that up for him to see if he has any luck.
For me, I knew I needed to get him into hyperbarics right away. I knew that. And the hospital, once he was released from the hospital after about two and a half weeks he was in, because he had to have an endarterectomy in his neck. He had to have a surgery, which is you can come out of it and you cannot come out of it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So once I got him out of the hospital, I brought him home for one day, and then we were in the car to Vancouver for hyperbarics. And it was like watching a wilted plant come back to life. When we first walked into the office of the chamber, I said, it was raining, and I said, we need to take our shoes off. And he just looked at me. And so he was there was a stool, and there were stools and a bench right there. And he was standing trying to remove his footwear. And I said, you could sit down. And he didn't comprehend sitting down to remove his shoes. He didn't know how to eat. He didn't know how to read, to write, none of that.
Wow.
None of it.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It is incredible. It is a miracle. This album, that is really, truly a miracle. I don't know, God, Buddha, Allah, whoever you believe in, but there was divine intervention, no question. And his time on this planet is not done. That's why he thought, okay, music for the fans, music for the fans. That's what I can do. That's what I will do.
And check out Paul's new album, Midnight Rose. You can go to paulrodgers.com for more information. Paul's wife, Cynthia Rodgers, thank you so much for coming on. I got to tell you, you guys, incredibly kind people. And to think with all the cancellations and the screw-ups on my part, how this interview might never have happened. So grateful to you both.
Take care.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.
So when I called back the second time on my cell and Paul answered the phone, I just kind of told him that whole story that I told you in the beginning of this podcast. And, he felt very bad about my dog passing away, and then told me the story about his dog. And then we connected right then and there, and was just great talking about everything. Of course, the series of strokes that he just had over the past few years, and the remarkable recovery from the hyperbarics treatment that he received. His father in the steel mill, his grandfather working on the railroad. How about Paul Rodgers singing to us a couple of different times during this interview? I thought that was pretty special. So not really from a musical family. Grandfather who worked on the railroad, played a little banjo, but that was about it. Paul's musical influences, Otis Redding. From the time he was 12 years old, he got that guitar from his old man. He knew music was the way he wanted to go. So he didn't really have any type of a backup plan, but he did get a job. He went to the steelworks place where his old man worked and applied to be a fitter, and then quickly thought to himself, well, this isn't what I want to do under any circumstance, which I can understand completely. Then he did get a job at a paint and wallpaper store, and that job actually gave him the flexibility to do the gigs on nights and weekends. So he had a little bit of money coming in from that job, but never looked back as he became the legendary Paul Rodgers, and in my opinion, one of the three greatest voices in rock and roll. So thanks so much for listening to this podcast. If you like it, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, leave a review. Totally would appreciate that. All past episodes are up on celebrityjobber.com and available to stream anywhere you pod, like Apple Podcast or Spotify. Anywhere. We're there. So thanks again for listening to another episode of Celebrity Jobber. We'll catch you next week. I'm Jeff Zito.